The camera world really is like the modern old lady sewing circle with all the rumors and gossip and how much we just revel in these predictions. And I'm the same way. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I know specifically Panasonic talks about how online discussion and emails and requests directly influence some of their design decisions. Sometimes for better, sometimes for worse, but they always try to give us what we're asking for and then a little bit extra. So obviously we've been getting tons of rumors about like the GH7, the S1H Mark II, bunches of stuff like that all year long. And I just want to talk about what I think those cameras might do, will do, should do, and talk about the G100 Mark II, which is another wild rumor that we got recently. So let's just get right into it. So let's start with one everybody wants to hear about. This, the GH7. So when is it coming? I don't know. What is it going to bring? I don't know that either, but I just want to talk about what I think they might do and what I think they should do. So obviously the G9 Mark II has come out of nowhere and beat the GH6 in a lot of ways with the lower ISO for the dynamic range boost. The streaking's gone. So yeah, I think with the GH7, we're going to see the obvious changes. New sensor, but similar design as the G9 Mark II with phase detect, obviously. So yeah, improved sensor, improved IBIS, improved processor, all that good stuff to really enable those new features that the G9 introduced, as well as maybe some new ones. Personally, one of my little pet peeves is no open gate modes past 30 frames. Yeah, we've got the 4.4K, but it's not technically open gate because it crops in on the sensor, and the whole point of open gate is no cropping at all. So it's nice that we have that at least, but having a full sensor width 4x3 would be great, even if it is 4K or, not 5.8K. That's just a little pet peeve of mine. I'm not really sure if they're going to fix that or not, but I wish they would. I also think, they don't really make these upgrades lightly. So maybe if this is a GH6 Mark II, they would just put, the phase detect in it and call it a day. But if we're talking about a true GH7, I think we're looking at something more along the lines of a big upgrade, or at least a few notable big jumps. The phase detect would obviously be one. And I think another one would be that sort of ND filter system they patented. I think that patent was for a bigger camera like a S1H Mark II. More on that later. But I think it would be just as easy to put it in even easier to put it in a smaller camera like the GH7. So if the GH7 comes out and is like, we have such a fast reading out sensor, or even a global sensor, probably not. But if they have a really fast reading out sensor, even faster or just as fast as the G9 Mark II, and they remove the shutter and put in this filter system for the ND filters, that would make it one of the, if not the first camera with body stabilization and internal NDs, which that's going to be huge. I love internal NDs. Everybody loves internal NDs. Good stuff. I wonder how the media is going to work out, like the SD card CF Express system. I know some people really hate on the CF Express and the GH6, but it enables some cool stuff like the internal ProRes. And I think, I'm curious what they would do. Maybe they would do like a CF Express dual SD card slot like Sony does, and then an SD card slot on the second slot. Maybe I don't know if there's room to do dual SD and CF Express like the new, A9 III or whatever. Some of the Sony cameras and the A1 do. And I don't think they'd go back to just SD cards. So I feel like it's going to be dual CF Express Type B or a CF Express SD combo and an SD card as the second card, but we'll see. And I think something that's on the horizon for most cameras is going to be added USB-C functionality, or even multiple USB-C ports, so you could connect it to devices or power it, or do an SSD and power delivery. I think there's a lot of options there, and I think, as USB-C is even more standardized, we're going to see more USB-C ports on cameras. I think if you had two USB-Cs, that would be great. Another thing I see all the time is there going to be a GH6s, a GH7s? Are they going to release a new version of the GH5s, basically? And in my mind, I don't think so. I really am starting to think that was a one-off camera for Panasonic for a few reasons. Just because it didn't go over well. People in the cinema world love cameras with no IBIS because it can mess with things on set. But YouTubers hate it, and YouTubers love IBIS. And so when you have YouTube and YouTubers being the main source of discourse on a camera, and they really hate this feature and don't explain why it's missing, you end up with a very misunderstood camera, and a camera that not a lot of people appreciate to its fullest. I would love an updated GH5s, IBIS or no, just because I want the 4K 60 with 10-bit, which is the one big thing holding that camera back, in my opinion. But still a great camera with great utility, the original, and I just don't think, I don't know, if they released, I know a lot of people just want, the root question here is people want a Micro Four Thirds camera with a dual gain sensor, and I just don't know if Panasonic has any interest or plans on doing that. And if they did do it, would they just, give it in-body image stabilization? And kind of, that goes against like the fundamentals of the GH5s originally, right? Or would they not put IBIS in it? I don't know. What do you guys think? Is Panasonic going to ever really implement a dual gain sensor in a Micro Four Thirds camera again? And will they call it the GH6s, or will they just put it in the GH7 or some other kind of body and have a whole new aesthetic and design and vibe and everything? Because the marketing strategy for most camera companies, Panasonic included, is find a successful camera and specifically that camera's name, like the GH5 or the S5 or the G9, and give it a Mark II or give it a new version. And that new version might not resemble that old camera at all when you look at specifics, but so a GH6s might have IBIS and might have the GH6 body and not really resemble many things that the original did well. So we'll see. I would definitely love to hear your thoughts on the GH5s Successor, because I think a lot of people want it, but a lot of people still don't understand that camera. And so from a marketing standpoint, I don't know if it's like necessarily the move to go for Panasonic, but let me know. So this other one is, again, another rumor, but I never would have predicted this on my own. But now that I hear it, I feel like there's definitely something to it, okay? And that would be the rumors of a G100 Mark II. Now, at face value, this kind of goes against my prediction earlier of like, hey, Panasonic, if there's any controversy or anything like that around their camera bodies, if it's not really well received, then they're not going to make an update to it. They'll kind of do an update to it and call it something else, or they just won't update it. The G100 was a bit of a mixed bag because of some of the reviews online, but a lot of people still really liked it for having the updated features, 20 megapixel sensor, and other things in a Micro Four Thirds body that was still small, which is kind of a lot of people's biggest draw to Micro Four Thirds is how small it can get. And the G100, for all of the things people say about it, they can't deny that it's super small and pretty powerful in some respects. But the rumors here are predicting a 25 megapixel sensor, phase detection, of course. I don't think Panasonic's ever going to release another contrast-based system again. We've got 4K 60 at 10-bit and a single SD card, right? And a single SD card, right? So basically this is going to be, hey, we've got the G9 sensor, stick it in a G100, limit a few things so the thing doesn't like literally catch on fire, and put out a fairly powerful, really small Micro Four Thirds camera, which, they don't need a ton, like dozens of smaller camera, GX9, GX10, all these different compact cameras, but they do need one compact camera. And the GH6 and the G9 II are not it. And so even if this isn't the most popular camera, the most popular body design, they've probably got a lot of these parts and designs laying around still. I think some of the older camera designs are just a little bit too outdated and would take more work to update to like the current Panasonic vibe. But the G100 with some small modifications, these updated features, and if they can manage to somehow put even like an okay version of internal image stabilization in this camera, I think this could be like the de facto sort of only real option for a modern small Micro Four Thirds camera. And I think that has a place for a lot of people who don't need the insane 4K 120, 5.8K open gate features of the G9. So I actually think this is kind of genius if they do it, personally. But Just as always, start the conversation, continue the conversation down below, and tell me what you think of a potential G100 Mark II. It's kind of genius, right? And now we've got the S1H Mark II. These rumors are from like March, so obviously take that with a grain of salt. But I did still want to talk about the S1H Mark II because I think Panasonic are primed to update this camera if they do it well. Obviously, the S1H original is getting a little outdated, especially because a lot of people consider the S5 to have basically completely replaced that camera. So let's go over some of the rumors we heard back in the day, which is like, it's probably going to do 8K, it's probably going to be 50 megapixels, 8K, 6K 60, 8K RAW, like a bunch of stuff like that with, you know, I think you probably heard the rumors. But the biggest thing for me is if Panasonic also did say that they're not really focusing on 8K right now, and 4 and 6K are plenty for them to deal with, and for most shooters, and I think that's a pretty good observation and a good point. So, why am I talking about this? Well, there's a few cameras besides the S1H that are being sorely neglected. And I think Panasonic, if they do have a higher megapixel camera, could solve that all in one. So we've got the original S1, which is kind of like, in retrospect, now with all the other cameras out, it just feels like the master of none, right? It doesn't have the small size and the phase detect of the S5, S5 II series. It doesn't have all the video features of the S1H. It just feels just in no man's land. But with a higher megapixel count in a follow-up, I believe they could replace 3 cameras with 2 and make everybody happy. So I kind of am proposing an update to the S1H, the S1, and the S1R. So if we get 50 megapixels with some more features and, you know, handheld high res and a bunch of stuff, I think the S1 and the S1R could come together in a higher resolution photography camera using a very similar body, potentially with a couple tweaks, to an S1H Mark II, which can take advantage of that high resolution sensor in the same way for high resolution video. Slap an optical low pass filter on one, don't put it on the other one, and you've got everybody happy, in my opinion. So obviously the S1H Mark II can have a few extra features, maybe put the fan in the top part and seal it off on the other ones. But I think that is an interesting way that Panasonic might take it, and feels like a similar strategy of the S5 II, the S5 IIX, and the G9 Mark II sharing very similar body designs. I think it's just a smart idea that Panasonic had, and I think they should continue rolling with that because I think it would make a lot of people happy, and it would really help out those S1, S1R, and S1H shooters to update that camera with some of the modern features and phase detect. But anyway, those are like the big cameras I feel like Panasonic might have on the horizon. Those are all the rumors that I have heard that even are interesting to me. I don't know if they're accurate, but they were interesting. And yeah, whether it's the GH7, the GH7s, the G100, or the S1H Mark II, definitely, or all three. I would love to hear comments in the comment section and look at other comments and just keep this discussion going, because I think Panasonic is ramping up production. I think they're releasing more cameras quicker, and I'm really interested to see if this more aggressive release schedule is going to pay off for them. And I'm just interested to see what they do next, really. So anyway, thanks for coming by. Thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one.